The Monaco Grand Prix this year will be like no other because of this one major change. Bonjour from Monte Carlo. Obviously, this is not Monte Carlo. Either way, this weekend, Formula One hits the streets of Monaco at the Circuit de Monaco for the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix. It's round 8 of the Formula One season, week 2 of 3 of this European stint, going from Italy to Monaco, then to Spain. Known for the yachts in the water, the lack of passing, but also the very tight technical circuit, this 3.33 kilometer circuit will host 78 laps of F1 action. Let's dive in. Welcome to Track Limits. First, let's briefly talk about what happened last week in Emilia-Romagna. Max Verstappen surprisingly got the win ahead of both McLaren's Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris there, which puts us in this specific championship situation. Oscar Piastri still leads the championship standings with 146 points. Right behind him in second, though, is his teammate with 133, but slowly closing the gap with the win in Emilia-Romagna is Max Verstappen with 124. Now, why was this a phenomenal win for Max in Emilia-Romagna? Well, a lot of people didn't think Red Bull actually had the speed to beat the McLarens, and I don't really think they did. I think the best car on the track was Oscar Piastri, but in racing, oftentimes the fastest car does not win the race. Look at what happened in the NASCAR Cup Series at the All-Star race. You could argue that Ryan Preece was the fastest car on track, and he should have won that race, but he got a penalty. Either way, let's move back over across the pond and talk about Monaco. When are all the practices and the qualifying and the actual Grand Prix happening this weekend? Now, these times are all Eastern time, but on Friday, May 23rd, practice 1 starts at 7:30 a.m., followed by practice 2 at 11 a.m. Then on Saturday, May 24th, you have practice 3 starting at 6:30 in the morning, with qualifying starting at 10 a.m. And then on Sunday, May 25th, to start off one of the greatest days, if not the greatest day in motorsports, it is going to be the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix, taking place at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Now, you can't talk about Monaco and talk about these European races without maybe some chance of rain. So, will we see rain this weekend? Yes, we will see rain this weekend. On Saturday, it's going to affect practice 3 and qualifying. Then on Sunday, it looks like it just should be partly cloudy. Either way, this still could change depending on when you're watching this video, how many days out it is, and it could shift over to Sunday, it could shift back over to Friday. Don't really know at the moment, but what it looks like is that on Saturday there will be rain. Now let's talk about tires. So this year it's going to look a little bit different from what kind of tires you are required to use in the Monaco GP. So there are 13 overall sets of tires for the entire weekend. 8 softs, 3 mediums, and 2 hard sets of tires, along with 4 intermediates and 3 sets of full wets. Additionally, Formula One has implemented a new rule this year to promote overtaking, which I have my thoughts on that I'll share in a second. But what the rule is that every single car has to use 3 different compounds throughout the race, a soft, medium, and a hard, which means there has to be at least 2 pit stops. It cannot be any less than that. I'm assuming there will be penalties assigned to those drivers or teams who do not pit twice, but I highly, highly, highly doubt that'll happen. Either way, every team has to use 3 different compounds, which means 2 pit stops, to promote overtaking. Well, talking about overtaking in the Monaco GP, it's been a problem for a while. The circuit is extremely narrow. There are very little, if any, true passing zones. And this approach is hopefully going to promote overtaking. Now, there's 2 different kinds of overtaking. There is on-track overtaking and pit lane overtaking with an undercut or an overcut, or maybe just staying out while another driver pits and you go on a completely different cycle of strategy. Do I consider that a true overtake? Not really, because we're not seeing on-track action. They want to promote on-track action. I don't think simply pitting a car and while another driver goes by is considered, in my book, a true overtake for what the fans want to see. Now, on the flip side, let's say a driver is on hards, another driver is on softs, and that driver who's on softs has been out there for a while trying to extend the life of the tire, and the driver on the hard is going to blow by them because the tires are at a healthier state. That could for sure promote overtaking. I can see that happen. I'm curious how the pit lane overtaking is going to quantify comparatively to the on-track overtaking, and that's something that I will be reporting on next week in my Spanish Grand Prix preview going out on Tuesday. So what are the storylines going into this weekend's race? There are 2 different storylines that I want to talk about. The first is what I just mentioned, the mandatory 2-stop rule. So that's going to be implemented for the first time. I'm curious how that's going to work out and how these teams are going to deploy the different compounds depending on the stint of the race. So since we know that and that's out of the way, the second is Red Bull. Did Red Bull find something to match the pace of the McLaren? At the end of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Max was able to stabilize his lead from Lando Norris at about 18 seconds. Now, both of them were technically in clear air, I would categorize that, because Lando was so far back. Max's slipstream had no effect on Lando, and that gap essentially stabilized. Oscar Piastri for sure was the fastest car on track, so I don't think Max is faster than Oscar, but I think Max is at the same pace as Lando, and so that poses a question. What could happen this week in Monaco? Could Red Bull have a great qualifying effort, and we've seen Max Verstappen come out and absolutely just hammer qualifying? Could we see this race play into Max's favor? Before I get into who my official picks are for this weekend, I want to talk about one quick fun fact about this race. Only 10 times since 1950 has a driver won from outside the top 3 positions. So what does this mean for this weekend's race? Could this mandatory 2-stop strategy actually play a factor into who wins the race from somebody who's a little bit further on back, maybe 4th, maybe 5th? We haven't seen that much in the history of Formula 1, but could this rule add another element to possibly have somebody behind 1st through 3rd win the race? I think it definitely could, especially if those cars 1st through 3rd get undercut by somebody who's going on a faster tire at the end of the race. That could be very interesting to watch out for. So, who is my pick for this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix? I would love to say this guy going to repeat, but I think that we all know that Ferrari has qualifying issues. I think it's going to be somebody who has gotten the pole this season. So Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris. And of those 3, I believe that the driver who's been able to outperform his car, outperform better cars, is going to come out on top in qualifying and going to win this race. My pick this weekend is going to be Max Verstappen. Let me know in the comments, who is your pick for this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix? Are we going to see a surprise winner? Are we going to see Ferrari somehow fix their qualifying woes? Are we going to see George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, one of the most consistent teams on the grid, have solid qualifying efforts and possibly win the race? Or are we going to see absolute chaos in turn 1 and multiple cars pile up? Who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's really going to wrap up today's episode of Track Limits. So make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to ATYL Media, and so you don't miss any more Track Limit episodes and any other episodes that are going on here on ATYL Media. We have tons of content, a lot of creators covering all different kind of motorsports. So find which ones you like, watch them, watch all of them. I would advocate for that. And make sure, as again, to subscribe right here. I got it right this time. Subscribe right there. And don't miss next week's Track Limit episode going out on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the preview of the Spanish Grand Prix. As always, this is John, the motorsports enthusiast, reminding you to always keep it within track limits. I'll see you next week. Ciao.